You're listening to Glitch Girls, 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 an excerpt from the novel Czech Glory Hole Massacre by Haely Bear. Glitch Girls, Girls, Girls. Whether it be a pearl or a canyon, a grain of sand or a trickle of water, every phenomenon can be traced back to its origin, its genesis. In the case of my romantic befuddlement, it began on a balmy August night in Estero Beach, a vacation mobile home park near Ensenada, Mexico. Mournful roars from the resort owner's pet lion prowled the deserted beaches and alleyways, while our parents drank Franzia and brown label beer in the trailer, us kids having been locked outside to roast marshmallows around the fire pit. A teenage boy, Kevin, with copper skin and dark lashes, asked if I wanted to go for a walk in the dark. He said he would teach me how to do calisthenics. I said I had to ask my parents, as I was only 8. I knocked on the trailer's tin door and Mom opened it, swaying on her feet, grinning down at me standing on the steps with a teen boy I had just met. Mom, Kevin wants to teach me calisthenics over on the next block. Can I go with him? She turned back to the other adults sitting around the card table inside, collectively jeering. Calisthenics? Yeah, right. Wink, wink at the roaring crowd. Sure, go ahead. We walked to the corner where the streetlight was out. What are we going to do first? I asked him. He pulled me onto his lap. He smelled of salt and electric boy heat. His shirt had the soft wear of a much beloved object. He lifted my chin and kissed me. His lips were cold, as if he had been sucking on ice. His hands briefly wandered with nowhere to wander to, before falling to his sides. He released me, my lips still extended into the dark. He walked me back to my trailer, where I scrambled past the oblivious adults to lay awake alone in bed, my first sleepless night, intermittently counting my father's snores as they rattled the bedroom wall, and fantasizing about the life I would lead with my new boyfriend, Kevin, my love. The next day on the beach, the lapping tide deposited an old stick into the sand. I used it to lightly trace Kevin's name onto the skin of my forearm. The letters flashed white against my tan for a moment before fading away. In the weeks that followed, I caught glimpses of him a few times, but he did not speak to me or acknowledge my presence. Our torrid love affair had come to an end. 3 years later, I held the virtually flat triangles of pink polka dot fabric up to my chest and asked, "Do you think it's hotter to wear baby pink or baby blue? I want boys to know I'm innocent, but still hot." Mom pursed her lips and began backing the cart away from the training bra section. Haley, you're in 6th grade. Why on earth would a boy even see your bra? I thought about how I planned to droop one strap over my shoulder during soccer at recess. Let that cute El Salvadorian striker Luis know I was practically a woman. Oh, I don't know. Maybe just by accident. I watched her in my periphery as I flipped through the lacy stuff, feigning disinterest. I mean, there's this boy I like. I think we're maybe soulmates, so I guess he'll see it eventually. She raised her chin and shifted her tone to the tight nasal register she reserved for the combination of bragging and chastising. You know, your father and I met in Bible study, and we were just friends for a year before our first date. We didn't even kiss until we were engaged, and we waited until we were married to do the things that Jesus said only married people should do. Weren't you married before him, though? She stiffened. That was before I became a Christian, and it was a terrible mistake, one you get to avoid making because you're already a Christian and you need to act like one. She flipped a white A cup into the cart and wheeled off into the pajama section. I laid awake many a following tween night, wondering how the hell I was going to wait until I was married to have sex. Can 12-year-olds get married? Well, yes, but only to gross old men, not to each other. I was concerned that I may have had a true disability, that my nerve endings were closer to the surface of my skin than most people's were, and it impeded my ability to perform basic tasks or focus in school. I ached to be kissed on every inch of my body, to the point that I would apply lotion dozens of times a day, forming my fingers into the shape of a tulip to smooch along my clavicle and up my neck. Sitting in direct sun caused my hooded eyelids to become tropical umbrellas, casting shadows across the phantasm of Luis's face, his brown skin hot against my chilly whiteness, his cotton candy breath misting into my ear. I writhed in bed at night, my sweat coating the jersey knit bed sheets, turning them into coarse ropes that tightened around my thighs, the din of my humming nerves so loud against my eardrums that I had to sleep with the TV on just to drown it out. I knew I needed to jump the line to true love, and fast, before I either spontaneously combusted or buried myself alive just to feel the warm pressure of soil on my body. I began snooping through my parents' drawers, searching for clues as to how they had attained true love, and also snatching any loose change. I familiarized myself with a stack of old love letters hidden in my mom's lingerie drawer. My dad's stilted but still somewhat loopy script professed his undying love for her by way of Bible verses and eagerness for their encroaching honeymoon. Every hint at carnal desire tempered by the piety and patience of First Corinthians. I absorbed their love with my fingertips, rubbed the pages against my nostrils to see if they smelled like his Aramis cologne or the dried peony petals with which they shared a waxy envelope. I wanted a love like theirs, the kind that was destined to continue infinitely, beyond the gates of heaven, beyond the limits of time and space. I witnessed it in real time as well. He pinched and tickled her while we watched horror films, while I inched closer to them, anticipating the monster reveal, grasping for their comforting hands only to be swatted away. It wasn't that they told me I was unlovable, it was more the way I interpreted chastisement. When dad barked at me the night I piled spaghetti high onto my plate before performing a joyful arabesque, spiraling pasta and greasy marinara across the carpet, I concluded that I was not permitted to be joyful. Or the night I stopped to say hi to my pet rat Milo on my way to the bathroom. He bit my nose, causing blood to spray my bare feet, arcing up the walls. I screamed, flailing around the room, blinded by my own stupidity. "Are you kidding me?" Dad shoved me into the bathroom. Mom smashed a washcloth against my throbbing nose and hissed, "Stay here!" They rifled under the sink for cleaning supplies, then hunched, scrubbing the glistening red speckled carpet while I pinched my nose and watched, concluding that the carpeting was more important than my pain. My abject lack of athletic ability also became a point of contention and internalized ridicule. During a soccer game, my friend Annie and I, who were on the same team, simultaneously attempted to slide kick the ball. Our cleats clacked together in the wet grass, arms and legs intertwining like discarded marionettes. Stunned, bruised, and embarrassed, I wiped the mud from my knees as the hoots and cackles of my parents' guttural mirth shot across the field. The fire of my adolescent rage surged into a shriek of "Fuck off!" Thrusting both middle fingers in their direction, barely aware of the ref waving a red card and whistling me off the field. I ran to the parking lot, wiping tears and snot on the dusty bumpers of minivans as I careened past ogling families. Hiding behind the snack bar dumpster, I jammed my knuckles into my scapula, trying to force down my hitching sobs, waiting for my parents to find and soothe me. They did not search for me. I eventually tired myself out, concluding that I was not worth soothing. I simply couldn't understand why my mom was so beloved, and I seemed to only ever be the target of mockery or scorn. I repeatedly pored over the stack of love letters, trying to decipher the syntax for clues, the biblical references for allusions, but they were all so utterly straightforward. I finally decided that if the answer wasn't in the words on the pages, maybe it was in the lingerie under which they were hidden. I packed all the most titillating pieces into a duffel bag and secreted it down the street to Annie's house, where we tried them on, laughing at the thongs going up our butt cracks, parading around like showgirls in the fuchsia lace and dyed ostrich feather bustiers of mysterious origin. Surely my mother hadn't found these erotic relics in the Target intimate apparel section. Such frippery was surely too comical to be sexy. I knew that I was missing something. I expanded my search to other areas of their bedroom, eventually discovering a copy of Delta of Venus by Anais Nin, hidden on top of my mom's armoire, next to a bottle of mint flavored lube, which tasted like Listerine. I pilfered the book, reading it only at night, after everyone else was asleep, reveling in the origin story on the inside cover. Nin was paid $1 a page by an anonymous, horny benefactor. Even at age 12, I was beguiled by the fact that someone could be paid to write out all her sexiest fantasies. I, never having consciously felt horny before, interpreted the sensation this book conjured in me as the need to urinate. I would lean into the bathroom nightlight, squinting to read while sitting on the toilet, tiny dribbles of pee tickling my hairless labia, each word a turn of the key into a world I yearned to inhabit. I wanted to lay bare-assed on an ibex hide beside a roaring fire in the Alps. I wanted to crawl on all fours through a Peruvian opium den, mounted and suckled by a litter of semi-conscious poets. I wanted nipples like attentive razors in a drafty Parisian art studio, a linen tarp wrapped around my waist, as Jean-Claude fumbled for just the right shade of burnt umber to imply the shadows beneath my breasts. I wanted all the classy eroticism of a bohemian lifestyle, but I had been so deeply indoctrinated with Christianity and the romantic attention my father paid my mother that all of my fantasies wound around a singular, faceless husband whom I was sure to meet in seventh grade. Just as I misinterpreted arousal as a bladder infection, I misinterpreted a desire for physical intimacy with being in love. Thus, any boy I wanted to hump, I assumed was the love of my life. It became a pattern of infatuation and disappointment that I enacted dozens of times. I, in essence, developed an addiction to breaking my own heart. My parents had an illegal cable black box throughout the 90s. This device gave us every channel: HBO, Showtime, Nickelodeon, Cinemax, Adam and Eve, and Playboy. I walked home from school a full hour and a half before my parents got off of work, and so watched an hour and 20 minutes of porn every weekday. Nin's Art Nouveau eroticisms had already forged the aesthetic of my desire, such that I watched American porn out of a sense of sneering, rebellious obligation more than fascination. I liked Skinemax for the dreamy lighting and passable acting, but quickly grew frustrated by the cutaways right when the action heated up. The straightforward porn on Adam and Eve was, of course, more engrossing due to its authenticity, but the scenes were all lit like surgical theaters, shot in cheap condos and McMansions. The dialogue was written with all the imagination of an opioid addicted linoleum salesman from Wichita. Every man was a working class schmuck on his luckiest day. Every woman was a bored housewife. Not one of them was expressing their joie de vivre through a sexuality that was essentially the performance portion of their critically acclaimed solo exposition at the Musée d'Orsay. They talked and fucked as if the woman's only other option was to lie around watching The Price is Right, and the man's only other option was to actually install the cable so that she could watch Lifetime instead. This tragic depiction of apathetic carnality fell right in line with all other daytime viewing options. Everything amounted to the joyless filling of holes, from the brand new washer dryer set to the red bulging dick flopping over the hem of frayed Levi's. No one was walking away enriched. No one exuded art, not even Bob Barker. Another phenomena came to be normalized in my life around the same time as my porn connoisseurship, rendering the two inextricable. I had been lightly shunned in elementary school, sure. Future cheerleaders sniffed out my weirdness and gave me a wide berth. but they rarely made specific personal attacks, and they certainly never threatened physical harm. On some level, I accepted that I talked too much shit and cried too often to ever be part of an extended friend group. Teary eyed twats are understandably tiresome and discardable. But in junior high, my precocity, snarkiness, emotional instability, and appearance congealed into a true and obvious target. Back then, natural blondes were the consummate enemy of self conscious brunette 12-year-olds. It wasn't that I was attractive, far from it. My braces had made my gums swell to twice their size so that I appeared to be virtually toothless, and I still wore my bangs in the tumbleweed curl that most other middle school girls had left in the rear view. But my blonde hair was what they chose to pick on the most, leading to such deep resentment that I tinted it brown with dye I had shoplifted from Target. My mom grounded me until it had faded back to blonde, saying, "People would kill to be natural blondes, and here you are throwing it away." In seventh grade woodshop, Ray Clegger sneered, "Hey, Powder, I need a Q-tip," before ripping out a swath of my hair and shoving it in his ear. He also, a couple years later, leaned into me at a party and whispered, "I'll stop talking shit on you if you suck my dick." I declined. A group of cholas had it especially in for me. They styled their bangs in thick jelly rolls, which supposedly hid razor blades, drew on sharp eyebrows, wore lipstick the same color brown as the lips of snarling guard dogs, brandished chain necklaces that could be wrapped around knuckles, their Dickies pants swinging wide over Doc Marten curb stomping boots. Every day after school, I had to deploy new tactics to evade the sentries they posted at various exits. My mom had taught me to report everything to authority figures, a policy which has never once proven to be advantageous, I might add. But loitering near a crossing guard had at least bought me some time in the past. On one particular day, there were no adults around, so I ran alone, the wind against my bare midriff a reminder of my vulnerability, the Southern California sun blistering my décolletage, smog colluding with asthma and panic to wither my lungs as I wheezed my way out of the parking lot. One of the girls pulled ahead of the pack. It was Julie Martinez. I knew her. She'd been the striker on my soccer team the previous fall. I tried to cut through the school for the deaf when Julie sprinted up behind me and snatched the back of my shirt. She dragged me to the ground and hissed in my ear, "Stand up for yourself or this'll never end." I tried to crawl away, but she pulled me up by a belt loop. The other girls circled me, kicking at my shins. I spun around, trying to see them all at once. Snot streamed into my mouth. I didn't wipe it away for fear they'd use the opportunity to punch my face. I hitch-sobbed as I begged, "Please stop. I didn't do anything." They laughed, hissing, "Dumb bitch, puta," and "white trash," while shoving me from every direction. Eventually, a deaf teacher discovered us and shooed them off, but they continued to sneer threats from behind their hands as they walked away. After word of my shameful lack of dignity got around, I became the unofficial shooting range for girls of all races and class backgrounds looking to direct their rage. Various groups cornered me at lunch or after school, hurling insults like slut and little bitch. Some even barked at me, guard dogs defending the attention of their snickering guy friends. If I was cornered while with my friends, they would invariably peel away, leaving me to absorb the hostility alone. On lawns, in hallways, sidewalks, and crosswalks, my streaming mascara betrayed any facade of self assurance or frenetic denial of whatever fabricated bleacher handjob or backseat fingering they had decided to accuse me of that day. All the while, the only positive attention I got was from boys, though they weren't much better. The first Valentine's Day on which I had a boyfriend, I gave him, his name is irrelevant as we never even held hands, a plastic heart filled with candies. As I held it out, his friend Brett smacked it to the ground, the candy skittering across the cement. I crouched down, scrambling for the scattered hearts, as Brett sneered, "See, now you can look right down her shirt." But no matter what horrors occurred at school, I could go home and watch porn. A release not so much physically, as I had no idea how to pleasure myself, but more by way of having a secret ceremony. I would close the blinds, pour myself a bit of vodka and coke, and delve into the secret lives of adults. Porn intrigued me, not just because I was horny. The actors seemed so genuinely happy. I wanted to be happy and sexy, to have my shit together like the women in Delta of Venus. They made love, then went about their lives as artists and poets, never ashamed of their actions, always with loads of sexy friends ready to share champagne and trade provocative tales. I wanted to try that, to use my carnal knowledge to somehow hoist myself into the social echelon in which I truly belonged. One Friday in the fall of my sophomore year, Annie had an in to hang out with some popular jocks who lived down the street from her. I didn't know any of them, but they were high school famous baseball players, a sport for which I personally had minimal respect, but which granted them notoriety. I perceived my inclusion in their plans as a step toward my rightful place in the social hierarchy. We met at the movie theater to see Happy Gilmore. Annie and I sat a row behind them, watching as the tallest jock, Kyle, made out with his girlfriend, Stacy. I noted the way he stroked her face, delicately cupping her chin in his pitcher's hands. He tilted his head to nibble her ear, making her giggle and release tiny moans, nuzzling into him like a fluffy bunny. Afterward, Stacy had to go home, but Annie and I were invited back to Kyle's house with the guys. They had all loved the scene where Bob Barker beats up Adam Sandler. They kept saying, "The price is wrong, Bob." I laughed along with them, giddy to see them so entertained. I accepted a vodka and lemonade. It was strong, and I ended up sitting on Kyle's bed. I had never spoken to him before. He sat next to me. Then my pants were off. I had coincidentally shaved my pubes completely off for the first time that morning. A thoughtless experiment gone off the rails. My bikini area was cave dweller white with pink bumps like a raw chicken cutlet. His impression of fingering me was rubbing my cutlet until it bled. It hurt so much that I got on my knees to blow him just to get his fingers off me. His friend, a heavy-set, pockmarked guy who had graduated high school a creepily long time before, sat in the chair by the bed, videotaping the whole thing. I was aware of his presence, of the camera in my face, of smirking up at the lens. What can you do? Still sucking, just trying to get it over with already. Annie and the rest of the guys sat in the living room, waiting for us to finish. I could hear the snickering. I didn't enjoy any of it, his hard, dry kisses, his aggressive fingers, my mound rubbed raw and burning. I wanted it over, knew I had steered wrong, but I wasn't sure how. And I knew, even shit faced drunk, that there would be repercussions. Yet the pressure to finish trumped everything else. They always finish in porn. You have to keep going if you let something start. Everyone else was laughing, so it must have been fine. It was all a joke, like Bob Barker's old man strength. Except this time, I was finally in on it. We all played our part, right? Weren't we all so very silly? Afterwards, I dressed and returned to the living room. The video camera lurked on the kitchen counter. I ejected the VHS tape and broke it in half, throwing both halves into the trash. The older guy who filmed it gave me a ride home. When he pulled onto my street, he asked for my number. I shook my head, no, realizing then that I had left my pager on Kyle's bed. I knew I was going to catch hell from my mom, my head already throbbing. I gently removed his hand from my thigh while gripping the door handle and counting the seconds until he came to a complete stop. The next morning, my temples throbbed. My mouth was glued shut. I had to pry my lips apart to sip water, but I couldn't hydrate enough to drown the memories that floated up in slivers, stabbing me through my palate. My mom refused to give me Tylenol. She said hangovers were God's punishment for me losing my pager. On Sunday, I got my first cold sore. I called Annie that night and she said that everyone knew I'd hooked up with Kyle that the guys had taped the video back together and had spent the weekend hosting viewings of it at various houses. And now the slut of the year would be showing up to school with a big weeping sore on her mouth. I asked if I could stay home, but my mom once again said I got what I deserved. I heaped shining gobs of Carmex onto my lip. I plodded to every class, followed by whispers and giggling. A cheerleader I'd never met before elbow checked me against the wall. I even had a couple more basketballs thrown at my head in PE than usual. At lunch, Kyle accepted dabs and shoulder pats, turning away and smirking when I passed the popular kids area on the way to the pizza stand. Ray Clegger screamed, "Porn star!" Laughter, hoots. More people yelled, "Slut! Whore! Skank!" Ketchup coated french fries arced across the sky, splattering on my cheek, in my hair, sliding down my white shirt. It was like a low budget recreation of the prom scene in Carrie, except I had no psychic powers, no will for revenge. I ran home, ignoring the protests of the lunch lady, crawling through the dog door to cower in my room. That night, dozens of people called our house. When my mom answered, they explained at length to her that I was a slut and a porn star. Once she stopped answering the phone, they left messages on the answering machine. They shrieked that I was trash, that I deserved to die, that I had AIDS. Some even threatened that my parents would be sued for risking the public health if they let me return to school. My mom asked me what had happened, and I said it was a prank, that it must be one of those notorious Monday night slumber parties where they all dared each other to be as vicious as possible. You know, basic teenage tomfoolery. She took the phone off the hook and went back to watching Wheel of Fortune. After my parents went to bed, I stayed up watching Nick at Night. Lucy and Desi rubbed their playful quibbles in my face. No one would marry me now. I was doomed to be a walking cum dumpster. I lay on the couch unblinking, wanting to merge with the black and white world on TV. Finally, Golden Girls came on, and the theme song, as always, almost convinced me that I had friends. I told my parents that I would walk to school the next morning, waited in the bushes around the corner for them to go to work, then crawled back through the dog door and opened their medicine cabinet. I fished out the Costco sized bottle of Tylenol PM and began to swallow them, two at a time. The fact that we didn't have liquid gels may have saved my life, because each powdery pill that tried to scratch and claw its way back up my throat made me think of reasons it was a bad idea. What if I only went into kidney failure and then had to be on dialysis the rest of my life? What if my death made my mom too depressed to function? What if I ruined her life too? What if maybe someday a guy would come along and not care what a piece of disease riddled trash I'd been in high school? Maybe a guy with his own troubled past, or a guy who got bullied for having only one leg but was otherwise super hot, or a guy whose sister was a skank, so he understood. I stopped after the 12th pill. I curled up on my parents' bathroom floor, the bottle propped between my hand and the crook of my arm, intentionally posed for maximum dramatic effect. I laid there for a couple hours, the synthetic carpeting digging into my cheek as I grew heavy but not sleepy. The mechanical groan of the garage door opening when my dad got home from work meant making a choice: being found on my parents' bathroom floor, clearly fine, or getting up and at least sparing them the shameful explanation of how I couldn't do anything right, not even suicide. I stood up. I microwaved a quesadilla. The following weekend, I painted my bedroom walls the darkest gray my mom would allow. My haphazard thrust into the paint can pollocked the carpeting with deep, steely drips. I didn't mind. Fuck their carpet. I liked digging my toes into the coagulated lumps. My nightly trips to the bathroom to fetch a glass of water became impromptu readings of the braille tome of my depression. Gradually, I began throwing my soccer and swim team trophies out the window. starting with the stout participation statuettes and working my way up to the 3 foot tall AYSO Regional Championship Award. No one seemed to notice their disappearance. I imagine the gardeners simply swept up the broken marble bases along with the regular yard trimmings. I spent countless sleepless nights with my fingers gripping the bare mattress, waiting for the haunting wails of the midnight freight train and the solitary motorcyclist who revved down the hill on Arlington, rushing to be away. They spoke for me. That empty expanse of yearning, both in my heart and my twisted panties. After a week of hiding in the bushes until my parents left for work, sneaking back into the house through the dog door, then watching porn until one of my parents came home early after receiving a robocall about my truancy, they agreed to send me to the Seventh day Adventist school across town. New school jitters. Sitting in the back of the chapel next to Mr. Hank Hurst, the Bible teacher, a pair of lanky, dark skinned senior boys with thick black pompadours introduced themselves, the stares of their girlfriends trailing behind. I say hi and look away. I'm not trying to start anything. I want to be a good girl. After chapel, I have my first class of the day, Bible. There is no more history. For me, there is only Bible. The desks are arranged in columns on either side of the room so that half of the class can stare right at me at their leisure. Jesus wept. Today's lecture is on Ellen G. White, Queen of the Adventists. I've never heard of a female prophet before. Hell, I haven't heard of a female leader before, except, of course, Catherine the Great, the OG horse girl. Maybe this isn't a cult. I mean, a female prophet? That's pretty chill. But as Mr. Hankhurst relays the details of Ellen's miracle, I grow confused. As far as I can tell, all she did was lift an 18-pound Bible, hold it at chest height, all by her whittle self, and flip from verse to verse, calling people out for their sins. So, church sanctioned gossip. Cool, cool. My scoff echoes. Mr. Hankhurst raises his eyebrow. What, you don't believe in miracles? I just expected her to do more than lift a Bible and talk trash on her friends, is all. He shrugs and responds, it may seem small to us now, but it was miraculous at the time. A skater boy on the other side of the room sneers. We can't all be movie stars, opening his mouth in a wide O and pushing his tongue against the inside of his cheek. Everyone titters, even the nerds in the corner, their hands over their mouths, eyes checking in with each other. My flesh crackles like the atmosphere after lightning. I run to the bathroom. I miss my next class. A month after I turned 17, I go for a float in the neighborhood pool, stopping to sip occasionally from the Diet Coke and vodka that I pilfered from the handle Dad keeps under his fish tank. Each time I bring the cup to my lip, a different sneering Adventist face flashes up. I drink until they're merely floating innocuous blobs. I can finally close my eyes, exulting in the pain of my eyelids as they fry in the raw red sun before letting myself take another sip. A shadow bumbles across me and halts. I know before my eyes can focus that it's my neighbor, Derek, the senior geek who once left a plastic eyeball in my mailbox and said, I've got my eye on you. His lips bulge under the brim of his big floppy hat he always wears, glistening. He squats down, dips his finger in the water, flicks it at me until I shriek, knowing it is the reaction he was hoping for. He asks me if I'm hungry. We drive to Taco Bell in his Cadillac and I order a double-decker with Dr. Pepper. He lets me keep the change and hands me a fifth of Avalanche for my soda, grabbing the bottle back when he thinks I poured too much. I tune out his stale complaints about how I always pay more attention to his college friends when we go smoke weed with them. I know that if I don't respond, he'll eventually wear himself out. I ask him what said friends are doing right now and if we can go see them. He says they're all busy. I finish my Dr. Avalanche and say, well, why don't we go look at car seat covers for the caddy? I heard they had cool ones at the swap meet in San Bernardino. I don't tell him that I'd also heard they sold fake IDs. He'd never take me to get one of those because then I could stop begging him to buy me alcohol. It's a long drive and the LA commuters block us in as we collectively slouch east into the desert. We drive under the 60 overpass, and I stare longingly at the little cinder block building nestled in the freeway's cement armpit, the one with the neon purple sign that says, Temptations. There are only a couple dusty old cars in the parking lot, but it's still daylight. At the swap meet, behind the Rasta colored pot leaf car seat covers that Derek cynically fingers, squats a little booth with a handwritten sign that says, Out of state IDs for entertainment only. I asked the disinterested old Mexican woman for a Mississippi ID because it's far away and fun to spell. She takes my picture and $25 and tells me to wait 15 minutes. Derek is predictably pissed when he discovers my ruse. If I ever figure out the dark web enough to get my own Israeli pain pills, his hentai VHS tapes will be the only thing he has left to coerce me into hanging out again. He drives me home in what he believes to be a punishing silence. I press the warm, freshly laminated ID against my cheek. The temptation sign is on the far side of the freeway this time. It glows in the late twilight, the shadows of men twitching below it like bugs drawn to a zapper. I decline Mom's offer of chili relleno casserole in favor of starfishing face up in bed. The heat in my room is unbearable, rising up from the oven downstairs, pressing in from the desert outside, and the shame I wear like a tar cat suit. My pet rats, Heidi and Penelope, run around the baseboards, occasionally hopping up on the bed to nibble my collarbone. I giggle and tickle them until they squeak and run off on their rodentine errands. I am jealous of their productivity, but glad for the company. I wait until everyone else goes to sleep before I lug my blanket and pillow to the couch downstairs. The faux leather is cool against my skin, and I'm just in time for Golden Girls. It's the episode where Blanche used Rose's camera and accidentally double exposed the film, making it look like she slept with Rose's now dead husband, Charlie. They spend 22 minutes plus commercials trading insults, but in the end, they make up when they realize it was a misunderstanding. Yes, they all think Blanche is a slut, and sometimes they call her out for it, but not more than they do Rose for her inane St. Olaf stories or Sophia for being old. Blanche's sluttiness is simply a characteristic, and when they joke about it, she laughs with them. If anything, they're jealous. I pull my new ID out of my bra, fingering the rough edges. I admire my smile in the picture. It's so genuine, so thrilled for the future. I lay there, knowing that I have finally figured out Blanche's secret. She owns her sexuality. She revels in it. She tells them to eat their hearts out. It's a school holiday, and I tell my mom that my new friends from school have invited me to LA for a church revival and that I won't be home until late. As I just got my driver's license the month before, she is hesitant to let me take the car for such a long time. But I tell her it will be safe in Yorba Linda. We're all carpooling from there. I pull off the frontage road and park in the farthest corner of the Temptations parking lot in case I need to make a hasty retreat. The lobby appears to double as a sex toy store, like the ones whose windows I'd often peered through over by the Galleria Mall. R&B music bumps from behind a black curtain, and I wonder about the purpose of selling sex toys to what I can only imagine are sexless men. Do they pick up French ticklers for their wives after they get all bonerized in the back, like bringing leftovers from a restaurant home to their dog? A tall, bald man stands behind the cash register. He vaguely reminds me of one of my friend's dads. His large hand braces the keyboard proprietarily as he casually chats with the stripper. She is a leggy blonde with a deep tan, her dark lashes and eyeliner rendering her age indistinguishable. Somewhere between 23 and 55? The woman holds up a pink thong, as if having it appraised at a pawn shop. I then realize she isn't wearing anything on the bottom. Her inner labia peeks out from between her thighs, shiny and fuchsia, winking at me the way dirty old men used to when I'd visit my great grandpa at the nursing home. I hold my breath, woefully aware of how far out of my element I am. But I've come too far to back out now. I cough to announce my presence, conjuring my best southern inflection to say, I wanted to apply to dance? The woman rolls her eyes, jauntily flipping the thong over her shoulder and disappearing through a back door. I regret scaring her off. My first stripper in the wild. I feel as if I've seen a fairy or a feral geisha. I hadn't really thought about strippers existing in real life until this moment. These magical creatures with the power to extract men's money at will. She is everything. Everything I fear becoming, everything that enthralls me, all the experiences I long for. But most importantly, she has all the power I desperately need. Well, sure, hun, let's see your license. I hold out my Mississippi ID, trying desperately to mimic my smile in the picture, as if that were somehow the fraudulent element of this situation. No, hun, your entertainer's license. What's that? All dancers in Riverside County have to have one. Oh, darn it. I didn't know that. I just moved here from Mississippi. I see. Well, that's okay. They're still open. I can take you on over there right now if you want. I climb into his Dodge Ram and wait while he tells the DJ to watch the front. The truck's interior is clean and creamy. It even smells nice, citrusy, as if he puts in that extra bit of effort which the boys I know have yet to discover. The effort of class. I decide that he is a fine, upstanding gentleman. He does not embody the aura of a black lights in the daytime business owner. He's just a regular guy who runs a lucrative establishment. No easy feat in this economy. And is now going out of his way to help me get ahead in life. I wonder what the office for entertainers' licenses looks like. Will there be clowns in the lobby? Magicians? Showgirls? Will there be trapezes instead of chairs? Maybe a jovial Russian man and his impatient dancing bear? My whimsical fantasies are dashed as we pull into the parking lot of the downtown Riverside police station. My asshole tightens. He had neglected to mention the police. I scrutinize my ID. The ink is slightly smudged on the second S in Mississippi, and there's a tiny bubble in the lamination around the glued on photo. Shit. Bossman gets out and waves to me to join him, but I feel safer in the truck, gripping my seatbelt. He smiles broadly, beckoning me toward the front door once more. I figure I have no choice and slide out to join him. Behind the counter, a gray haired and bespectacled policewoman looks up from her paperwork. I notice that she recognizes my new boss. How you doing, Todd? He smiles. Not too bad. How's it going on the inside, Dottie? She shrugs, lifts a pile of papers and drops it forcefully. Same old shit. They both laugh. Now how about you, honey? I take it you need a license. Oh, yes, ma'am. Officer, please, I'd like one. My hand shakes as I fill out the form, checking my Mississippi ID for my address. 123 Toby Court. Why the hell did I use my dog's name? I don't even like him. She smiles and points at the paper. Honey, social security numbers have 9 digits. My face burns. Is there air conditioning in this friggin' place? I slide the clipboard back under the bulletproof glass and she balances it atop her villainous pile of intake forms. She hits a buzzer and the door to my right clicks open. Todd waves me on, saying, I'll be here when you're done. Officer Grandmama leads me to a room where a hulking industrial camera faces a wall with a delineated height marker and an old scarred up bench from which handcuffs dangle. She takes my picture, winking as I slip past her into the lobby. The sound of that locking door clicking shut with me on the side of freedom feels like unzipping my spine. I did it. I got away with it. I'm gonna build an empire. Todd says I have to dance that evening so that I can start paying him back the $250 he fronted me for the license fee. Back at the club, he slips into the darkness behind the curtain, pointing me toward the dressing room door. On the way, I casually peruse some vibrating panties, sidling against the wall in order to avoid a display of dildos so girthy that they could be used as bar stools. I pull the door open only to be slapped in the nose by every Victoria's Secret body spray at once, along with menthol cigarette smoke, baby wipes, and a hint of menstrual blood. Women. I hunch my shoulders, tiptoeing over the purses and duffel bags strewn around the floor, aiming for a clear spot in the far rear corner. A Latina woman with thick curly hair and gemstones lining her upper eyelids spots me in the mirror. She speaks into her own reflection. What's your name, honey? Haely, nice to meet you. Carmenita, nice to meet you too. Don't wear lotion on stage, okay, Hayley, or you'll get cut. Comprende? I nod, utterly bewitched by the gemstones flicking in and out of view as she flutters her lashes. I have no clue if she's being funny or threatening, but I don't even care. She's captivating. Yeah, of course. I don't even have any. But she is already talking to someone else. More women shuffle in from the club floor. A black woman with purple talon nails fanning herself with a stack of singles. A pale waif with big round eyes, bruised knees, and a black bob, spritzing and slipping through a curtain of plumeria body spray. The blonde from before, a little Playboy bunny shaped window onto her actual skin tone peeking out just above her G string. I try to find the rhythm to this cacophony of grimaces, cynical chuckles, and quivering skin trilling across the mirror. They tap lashes, pop ingrown hairs, tuck tampon strings, and laugh louder than women are allowed to laugh. Or so I had thought until now. I fold myself deeper into the corner, changing my clothes in the same manner as I had at church camp last summer. T-shirt on while I switch from a cotton to a lacy bra, then wrapping the shirt around my waist while I brace myself against the wall, struggling to pull on the red thong that my mom had inexplicably given me for Valentine's Day. The only dress I brought is the one I wore to the winter formal last year. It had seemed sexy and shimmery to me then, but these ladies are all wearing neon mesh with platform hooves. They clomp around like cyber satyrs at a post nuclear bacchanal. Some of them have noticed me and either smiled or snickered, but luckily none of them say anything about the fact that I'm clearly a child. I pop on some Bon Bell lip gloss and ascend the stairs that lead from the dressing room to the DJ booth. The dragon on the DJ's shiny shirt glows in the black light while he rifles through cases of CDs. I realize that my dress doesn't reflect any light. In the mirror behind the stage, I appear to be a steely lump floating in the darkness on two ghostly stumps. The DJ locks eyes with me and leans into the microphone, a strand of his otherwise slick back hair dripping over his forehead as he purrs. Sexy, sexy Lexi. That's right, gentlemen. Lexi will be coming down onto the floor ready to meet all your needs. Followed by a wolf howl sound effect. He blinks, flips a switch, then growls. And who are we, fresh meat? Uh, Haley? We already have a Haley, but that's my name. Then it's the last name you should use on stage. What's your stage name? Oh, I don't know. I didn't think of that. Well, what about Candy? We haven't had one in months. Isn't that kind of cliche? Cliche is the name of the game, fresh meat. Oh, okay. I'll be Candy, I guess. You got it, sugar. So have you danced before? Only grinding, like at dance clubs and stuff? Can you grind the air? I mean, I guess so. Won't that look ridiculous? No, it's hot. Go out there and just pretend you're having sex while suspended in honey. That sounds hard. You'll be fine. Just be sure to take your dress off on the first song, thong on the second. If you're wearing more than a smile after the first 30 seconds of song two, Todd'll find you. Oh, okay. Here's my music. I hand him my Lords of Acid CD, songs 2 and 4 circled in Sharpie. He sighs. Okay. Just really try to dance as slow as you can. Industrial music won't make you any fans with this crowd, but it's your 5 minutes. I cling to the pole at first, scared to walk across that slippery stage into the darkness. My wide eyed baby deer, knee wobbling, draws a few customers to the rail. They're mostly day laborers. Some are still wearing their white landscaping uniforms and smell like fresh grass. I am reminded of soccer practice. I slide down to my knees and spend the rest of my set on the safety of all fours. I crawl past them, employing that same exhibitionist smirk from the video that landed me here. Except this time, instead of lobbing ketchup soaked french fries at my head, the men smile. They slip singles into my thong. Singles become fistfuls. I clutch the wadded bills, piling them up behind me out of reach in case they try to snatch them back. But they don't. They appear entranced, quietly absorbing every move I make, as if I'm an acrobat or a chainsaw juggler. They grin appreciatively, despite my jerky decision stalls while I think about which feigned sex move to enact for them. I quickly run out of positions and decide to use the dollars as props. I bat them around like a kitten, rub them on my tummy. I toss them up so that they snow down around me. Then I make dollar bill angels trying to stifle my rapturous giggles. By the time I am fully nude, the money has fanned out around me, more than I have ever possessed in my life. I stretch on it, use the bills as knee pads, sliding from guy to guy. The DJ announces the end of my second song, and we all frown. We aren't finished. I don't want it to end. I never want this to end. A couple weeks later, both my parents show up to pick me up from school, which has never happened before. Get in, my dad orders from the passenger side. A week after that, I'm refilling the napkin holders at Carl's Jr., my paychecks barely covering makeup and weed. One day, I decide to chat up a girl in my study hall, Simone, because I had always considered her strikingly beautiful, but noticed that no one really talked to her. I am insanely envious of her long blonde hair, legs for days, lidded eyes, and her cute, crinkled up nose that seems to convey she shares my severe distaste for this whole school scam. I sit next to her. Hi, I'm Haley. Did you transfer here too? No. She doesn't look at me, just rests her chin on the desk. Oh, just hate it. I feel that. Not much to get up to. Yeah, it sucks. They won't let me leave campus at lunch anymore. She gazes longingly out the window. I think, yes, girl, let's run off into the sunset. What? That's fucking lame. Why not? 'Cause they caught me smoking. I wasn't even on campus. They're tripping. Fascists. She blinks, still fixated on the olive tree outside, its branches dangling like wet feather boas. I've heard others call her dull, special ed, etc., but I'm intrigued by her tortured silence. Plus, she's probably a good listener. Finally, she turns to me, a squint of recognition in her eyes. You're the one from the video? I can't detect any tone of malice in her question, so I answer honestly, yeah. That sucks. Yeah, I want to leave it at that, but I spurt. Fuck them anyway. I don't care what these assholes think. Shit, I was a stripper till my parents caught me. Her eyebrows raised. No way. Yep, they caught me after a couple weeks because I kept saying I was going to late night church, which isn't really a thing. But I made 3 grand. Her eyes bulge. That's insane, dude. I want to do it. Well, I can't anymore. My parents said they'll pay for college if I don't do it again. She looks at me like I'm a moron. So don't tell them. Let's go. A few Fridays later, Simone spends the night. Luckily, my driveway is steep, so I can back out in neutral and not start the car until we're down the street. We pull up at one of those houses downtown that looks like it could simultaneously be a crack house and a heritage site. We pay the $5 admission fee with fistfuls of quarters, then post up between the nitrous tank and the Sublime cover band. This guy I know from other parties, Big Nate, says he has coke. We ask him for some, but he says one of us has to go in the bushes with him. We side eye each other, looking his 6'5" frame up and down, his red raw knuckles dimpling a can of Bud Light. He's always been a happy go lucky type before, so this lurid proposition feels almost like a joke, just to see what we'll say. I shake my head, nudging Simone. Dude, you've been smoking my weed for weeks. It's your turn. She whispers, Dude, I'm a virgin. It's no big deal. I mean, it was gonna happen soon anyway. I feel vaguely guilty for pimping her out, but Coke sounds fun. I've been meaning to try it for a while. She'll get over the sex, but I need to feel my spine like a lightning rod. Need the stars to pierce my retinas. She follows him around the side of the house while I wait on a damp couch by the trash can fire. Some guy in a ripped flannel shirt hands me a limp balloon of half backwashed nitrous. I huff my brains out but don't feel much beyond the partial hyperventilation, so I hand him the rest of my spare change for a blotter of acid. I flick the soggy paper against the back of my teeth with my tongue until Simone plops down next to me. Well, where is it?
Dude, that fucking hurt. Yeah, it does the first few times, but where's our Coke? She picks leaves and twigs out of her hair. He just gave me a little on a key. Am I bleeding? She pulls her jeans up to inspect her knees. I'm disappointed, but refrain from complaining. Instead, I smooth her hair down and hold her hand, brush the grass off her shoulder, dig the coins out of her pocket so that she can do acid too. She's gonna need it. The LSD turns the green lights into jiggling shamrocks, guiding us home. Simone rubs her knees, and I forget to breathe as my life story tumbles out. She's such a good listener. I sense her despair through the cracks in my words, but facing my role in her misery sits too heavy on my vocal cords. It won't allow an apology to form. Instead, I gush about how much I love her eyebrows. I trace their arches at stoplights, intoning, "She's French. She's just gotta be." She says she doesn't know. I say, "She must be. That's the only explanation for such graceful features." The smoke from my cigarette coils in our hair, pulsating. I tell her she'll probably end up a supermodel or an artist model like the ones in Delta of Venus. I'm voraciously jealous of her assuredly glamorous future, wondering aloud about the humidity in Milan. She doesn't respond. I pretend I don't notice. The next week, she steals some meth from her dad's toolbox and we snort tiny lines, intrigued by how it's so much more efficient than Coke, or so she says. We stay up all night, cutting flowers and hummingbirds out of my parents' National Geographic magazines. The gray walls of my bedroom sprout meadows, an unlikely melange of tropical blossoms and papery pastel wildflowers. Tapirs and orangutans face off at oblique angles. My room is both vibrant and stifling. We chug water and laugh until we cry as she reenacts Big Nate's moans, the way his belly flopped on her back, how she had to roll out from under him and tried to grab the baggie of Coke from his pocket while he was still coming. My mom storms in around 3 a.m. I can see she is trying to stifle her rage at the commotion because she's at least relieved that I have a friend and that we are crafting, kinda. Once I am no longer grounded, we decide to start hanging out at her house, where the liquor levels are less scrutinized. Hell, her dad even fixes me a rum and Kool-Aid, and I dance with her little sister Stacy, swinging her by her arms and collapsing on the ottoman in a tickle crumble. One afternoon, Simone and I sprawl out on her couch, a box of goldfish crackers joining us at the wrist. We half-heartedly chuckle at Saved by the Bell reruns, sliding along the cushions as we flee the afternoon sun creeping through the blinds behind us. We hear the rumble of the garage door opening, and Simone's little brother, Kyle, saunters into the living room. His face lights up at the sight of us, yelling over his shoulder, "Hey, Dad! They're in here!" On the screen, Zach Morris declares timeout, capitalizing on Hollywood magic in order to escape a haymaker from an angry AC Slater. Everyone in the principal's office freezes. Zach's grin tells the audience, "Sometimes it's just too easy." I hear the thick slap of size 16 men's flip flops storming towards me. Simone's dad grabs thick fistfuls of my hair, digging into my scalp. I fly backward, skidding across the tiled hall, tufts of hair floating down around me. "You fucking whores!" His screams are hot against my eyes, pushing down my throat. He hauls me off the ground by my neck and slams me against the wall at the bottom of the stairs. My shoulder blade smashes the glass on Stacy's cheer photo, smearing blood across her gleaming braces. He reels above me, his Adam's apple a rumbling timpani, like the one I had played during the pirate song at graduation only weeks before. His smirk pinches into a tight, wet asshole before shitting a hot, chunky loogie onto my upraised cheek. "It's warm. It's real because it's warm." The toes of my Reeboks twitch against his shins that I dare not kick. I wipe at my cheek, phlegm oozing over my finger webs. I smear it on the white polyester carpet fibers on the bottom stair, matching my breath to the flick of each snail green tuft emerging from under my palm. Simone screeches, "Get off her! Get off her, you punk ass! Grinding her fists into the hollow between his shoulders, pushing his contorted face down toward me. Close enough to kiss. He shoves me away, turning to snarl at Simone. She scrambles toward the front door, white knuckles straining on the knob. Her dad takes two long, straight legged strides before jamming his thumbs into her throat. The door clicks open, but he kicks it closed before dragging her across the wall, family portraits stacking like firewood under her shuffling feet. Kyle heard you two on the phone, talking about how you blow guys for $50. Is that how you pay for your crack, huh, you little whores? He tosses Simone back toward the grim shadow of the living room. I stagger to the door, the handle still warm and sweaty. Though I am already regretting abandoning my only real friend, I tell myself that one of us has to get out, that every step away from him is a step toward our mutually assured justice. Someone has to tell the story. My father is a lawyer, goddammit! This guy will pay, motherfucker! His fingerprints burn a forensic ridge along my collarbone, each one a weighty deposit in my imagined bank account. Dad'll not only sue the shit out of this bitch, he'll make him do community service, too. The most shameful kind. I hope you like orange vests and picking up ratty old bras with a stick, you son of a bitch. Maybe even at rush hour, so all your friends can see what being a horrible father gets you. I tilt my cheek up, trying to preserve his DNA laced phlegm. Oh boy, you'd better watch out, you cretin, you feckless cur. He's bigger, but I'm smarter. My mind flitting through the limited lexicon of my true superiority, the way my fingers had so many times rumpled the edges of a slick red thesaurus, searching for the precise definition of this new and unimaginable debasement by someone below my station. No one lays hands on little women and gets away with it. Not in my world, you heathen. You dare slander me? Me? My sobs snag on my rib cage. I rip the door open, bathing my body in the safety of afternoon sun, the public sanctity of the front porch. I thrust my hand back into the house, reaching for Simone, who has disappeared deep in the depths of the hallway, her crimson face locked with her dad's, a spluttering tilt-a-whirl of rage and resentment. I croak, let her fucking go, or I'm calling the fucking cops! He turns to me, confusion replacing vengeance for a long enough moment that Simone can crawl out from under him. We run down the steps, chased by the screams of, You little lying whores! You're 18 now, Simone! That means I can kick you the fuck out of here legally! You think these Johns want to keep you? Fuck no! You're just a cum soaked mattress to them, you fucking slut! Hey, Haley, I bet your parents would love to know about this. I bet your father would want to hear all about the tricks you've been turning, you little bitch. You don't fool me, you little cock tease. I think I'll come to your house to make sure your parents take care of you. Don't worry about that. I shove Simone, reeling and bloody, into the passenger side of my mom's Ford Escort hatchback and run around to the driver's side. Her father emerges as I back out of the driveway. He's now wearing a Slayer t shirt with the sleeves and collar ripped off, jangling his keys over his head. Speeding home, I run red lights and change lanes erratically, almost hoping for a policeman to stop me, to insert sanity. Mr. Buchan's truck presses against us from behind, its hulking chrome ladder glinting a few cars back at every light. Nothing he had said made any fucking sense. How do you fight that? I've never had a false accusation lobbed at me before, or at least not by an adult. I have to soften the blow, have to protect my poor, already perpetually disappointed parents. I try to prep what I'll say. He is coming. He is huge. He is an adult human embodiment of lies and wrath, all while acknowledging that his lies are not completely inconceivable, knowing that I will have a tough time contradicting his tale. They had caught me stripping not long ago, but they had to believe I'd never jerk guys off. That was going too far. There is a huge, unstraddleable line between exhibitionism and prostitution, the thoughts of crossing which makes me ill. Sure, if men are gonna objectify and dehumanize you, get that bag. But I'd never give them fluid exchanging access to my body. My body that had only been touched by a few boys so far. Never a man. Never men. Simone whimpers against the window, slipping her long blonde hair through her fingers and plucking at the raw tips, mute and sullen, as usual. I am on my own. I run into my house screaming, Mom, Dad, you gotta listen. You gotta. If nothing else, they'd hear my side of the story first. We run past my dad's den, the open door revealing the blue womb of the fish tanks he stares at for hours most nights while sipping his vodka and diet Sprite. Tonight, however, my parents hold court in their shadowy, TV flashing living room, hands clasped over rotund bellies, their glasses reflecting the vacillating camera angles of some beige on beige detective drama. Simone and I eclipse their show, a warbling lunacy backlit by sepia LA streets. No amount of gunshots could drown out our inarticulate chirps, moans, and repeated, frenzied assertions of, he spit, he lies, he hit, he'll never get away with, tumbling between us, echoing each other. The shrill harmony of shared indignation falling into discord via each oblique interpretation of the incident. Simone's long, stringy hair levitates above her head in matted lumps, her Parisian eyebrows now split and bloodied, her long model legs mottled gray and red from being dragged down the hall. She stutters and drawls and flaps her hands, squeezing her eyes closed against the inky black reality of her story of secrets she has never before revealed to me. He stays up all night and he thinks I'm scared, dude. He thinks he can hurt me. He works out all night. Then and he even touches Stacy, my sister. He's a psycho. He's a tweaker, dude. My dad, I'm serious. He stays up all night, Metallica on blast until 5 in the morning, and then he comes up and I hear him in her room. 3 loud bangs on the front door. We screech, don't let him in! He's gonna kill us! Simone's eyes roll back in her head like a spooked horse. Dad pushes the lever of his recliner down, boosting him to a stand. He shuffles to the door, my mother sighing before following. Simone and I hide around the corner, fingertips pinching the belt loops of one another's jeans. Dad stands half behind the door. Mom adjusts her glasses, coughing into the arm of her terry cloth robe. Mr. Buchan lurches toward the door. My dad lets it fall shut an inch, and Mr. Buchan reels back. He rocks on his heels, steepling the tips of his fingers. Mr. Bear, my son Kyle, Simone's brother, heard Simone talking to your daughter about meeting guys and giving them blowjobs for $50. They apparently go out with these guys for 100, then they blow them in the bathroom for 50 more. Kyle heard them say this, okay? He heard them talking about this. I thought you should know that this is what your whore daughter is doing. Does. That's what your daughter does, and mine, well, you can keep mine. Dad tilts his head to listen with his good ear, but the word whore visibly ricochets off his furrowed brow. He turns to Mom, her lips a twist of confusion, her shoulders humped in fear, then turns back to Mr. Buchan, who uses his crossed arms to push his pecs up and out of his tank top. Dad exhales slowly and responds, okay, sir. Well, I heard what you have to say. I think that's all I need to hear, so you can go, and I will have a talk with the girls. Mr. Buchan scoffs and flaps his arms in one final protest, stomping off. Dad closes the door and faces us. Dad, why didn't you stand up for us? You know he's a liar. We told you. Why didn't you call the police? Hey, all I know is that he is very large and very angry. There was nothing I could say. You could say I'd never do that. You could say you know I'd never do that. He assaulted me. Us. I flap my open palms toward Simone, ushering her toward him. Example A. He shakes his head before cupping my mom's hip, a cue to turn away from me. He follows her back to the couch. Simone and I tromp up to my room. I let the rats out of their cage and they scramble around the perimeter of my bare mattress, cleaning up the Cheeto dust of days past. I press play on my CD player, conjuring the insane clown posse, soothed by their giggled threats of murdering their girlfriends for giving them genital warts. It's all a game if you're laughing, right? I flop onto the bed, trying to embrace the numbness of a wicked carnival. but all I can think about is my emotional orphaning. It washes over me as a frigid tide, the way new scars do. The brackish chill of adrenaline recedes, revealing the squirming detritus of self awareness. I am not the little girl Dad had taken out into the Baja estuary on summer fishing trips. I would never again lug the bucket of ghost shrimp that he sucked out of the mud to use as bait, pigtails tickling my strawberry kissed shoulders. No, I had been reduced to the regrettable annoyance of a sand flea pricking his ankles. How could he know if the accusations were true? Only I knew whether or not my obvious inclinations have yet driven me to the precipice of whoring. In all the world, only I know that I haven't. And even I don't know why I haven't. Disgust, maybe. Maybe not actually being a whore is the last strip of pride that hasn't been ripped from me. But as the wicked clowns scream about how dumb bitches get the hatchet, I realize I have only ever been what others decided I was anyway. I smash my face into my pillow, occasionally lifting it to find a dry spot to wipe my nose. After I run out of hitching breaths, I lay still, my rats running up to lick the salt off my cheeks. I feel Simone's fingers digging into my hip. She leans into me and whispers, "Hey, is there any shit left?" I nod, wipe my nose, put the rats back in their cage, tickling the little pink fingers they wrap around the bars, then pull down the crystal music box where I keep my ex boyfriend's pubes from the last time we had sex before he left for the army. Under those is my baggie of meth. We toot two squat, economical lines while I change the CD to a trance compilation. A young, breathy girl begs her man to tell her his fantasies so that they can be together in her dreams. I stand swaying, picturing the man who will soothe me with his loving words before we fall into each other's arms. When the beat finally drops, I quake from my head to my shoulders, all the way down through my limp wrists, my rhythmless gyrations releasing the chiggers of despair down into the carpet, where they will feast on the husks of their ancestors. Simone splays out on my bed, flexing and unflexing her ass as one does when twacked out and idle. She exhales, then balls up her fists like two crab apples, thumping her sides to emphasize each increasingly emphatic sentence. "He's gonna beat the shit out of me, dude. What am I supposed to do? Where can we go make some money? Don't you know guys from when you used to strip? Can't you call someone?" I don't. And I know we can't just walk into a club. My parents called Temptations. I can't go back there till I'm 18. "I need money now, dude. Tonight. I can't go home." She arches her back and slams down onto the bed, moaning. "I know you can't. I don't know, man. I mean, I just have to ask. Did you do what he said? I mean, did Kyle make that up?" She grabs a fistful of hair, searching for split ends. "He's a fucktard. He doesn't know anything." I shrug off her unspoken confession. With a dad like that, she could be doing a lot worse anyway. Okay, whatever. Let me think. I sneak downstairs where my parents have switched to the news, their backs to the open kitchen. I clink all the glasses together, making a big production of filling one with water, using my other hand to filch the yellow pages out of the cabinet, flinging it into the hallway. We pack the phone book, a few thongs, sparkly party dresses, and stilettos into my Jansport. The meth baggie is securely affixed to the safety pin in my nipple. We hustle down the stairs, closing the front door with a soft click. I hesitate to turn the key in the ignition. They had to have heard us. I don't want to get in trouble, not to mention that what we are about to do is incredibly dangerous, an awareness that even meth icing can't fully eradicate. I start the car, convinced that my parents must actually be glad to see us go, that they have written me off as unsalvageable. I assume that they will turn the volume up on the TV as I back down the driveway, probably so it is just loud enough that they won't have to talk. The sun flattens behind the tall palm trees lining Victoria Avenue. Smog orange and fuchsia striations flash in my rear view as we drive east into the twilight. We stop at the Yum Yum Donuts by the freeway, the one where we usually bummed cigarettes off the overnight bakers during our non slumber parties. We pass a can of Diet Coke back and forth while I thumb through the advertising section. Strippers, not there. Dancers, no. What the hell? Where do strippers advertise? I try to think of who else might have an entertainer's license and remember the time when I was 13 and had taken a summer clowning course at Riverside Community College. The instructor, Professor Sprinkles, had been a sort of David Koresh looking fella, his mop of floppy brown hair potentially having been sold as a set with his thin lips and wire rimmed glasses. I'd been bitter that we never once got to see him in clown makeup. The last day of class happened to be his birthday, and he told us that no one had remembered. His disappointment apparent as he shruggingly reviewed the physics of giraffe versus wiener dog balloon animals. He then read us a poem he had written about how sometimes clowns actually cry on the inside. Even at that age, I'd thought it was kind of hacky. As he was wrapping up, collecting our evaluations and loner joy buzzers, two ladies in shiny blonde wigs bounced into the lecture hall. Their breasts were the size of party balloons, and their cartoonish nurse costumes had fake tanner rings around the collars. They cooed and squealed over the professor, running their Porsche red nails through his thinning hair. One pinched the top button of her uniform, pushing her thumb down to slide the edge through the hole. I and all the males in class scooched up in our seats. What is happening? But then a middle aged lady in the front row stood up and asserted, "Excuse you, there are children in this classroom?" I looked around. The youngest people in the room were my age. There were no children. What the hell was she talking about? The nurses frowned and moaned. Aw. They gave our professor prolonged, buxom hugs, lingering with one of his hands in each of theirs as they shuffled out the door. He followed them a bit before waving goodbye, then turned back to the classroom, his face beaming red and glistening. His cheeks bunched up in a smile so wide that his eyes appeared to be closed. He attempted to make one final skunk, but kept popping the balloons until he tossed his little air pump onto the lectern, throwing his arms up in mock surrender. We all laughed, but only the grown ups knew why. I realized there, under the smirking side eyes of the donut men who should have kicked us out 15 minutes ago when they had turned off the neon sign, that those women had been strippers. I try to think of the overarching theme of the services offered by my former instructor's company. What do strippers and clowns have in common? Parties? Nope. It's not there. Costumes? That's not what I need. Ah, entertainment! Ayo! Several pages of entertainment companies tout princesses, ninja turtles, even pony rides. Kids just have these at birthday parties? Are we poor? I always considered us upper middle class, but I'd never witnessed any of these things. I also hadn't been invited to too many parties. Other kids had told me that their moms thought I was a bad influence. What do they know? I mean, sure, here I am, weeks out of high school, looking for anonymous people who will send me into circles of rabid men, offering up my pink tits and slit for singles. Fuck Mrs. Prince Sedino. Fuck Mrs. Roberts. What do they know? Here's a sexy cowgirl. No. Could I be an Oktoberfest lass? Not in June. And, bingo! Forever Entertainers. Now offering male and female exotic dancers, magicians, clowns, even midget bowling. Exotic dancers. That's me. Us. The two most exotic little white girls in the Inland Empire. I squeal and flip the book around to show Simone. She looks at it, then blinks up at me and says, "Let's fucking go, dude." The address listed is in the City of Industry, about halfway to LA. I write it down, then we hop back in the car where I map out the driving directions on a piece of college ruled paper, tucking it into the Thomas Guide map book. We roll up my last dollar to snort roly-poly bumps of crystal meth off of a head PE jewel case balanced on the cup holder in my mom's car, then set off for the City of Industry. I hold my camel out the cracked window as we speed north along the 60 freeway. steering with my knees so I can scan the radio until I settle on Under the Bridge by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I like how that song rumbles around in the back of my throat, the space inside me that doesn't care if I'm tone deaf. Simone picks at her split ends, gulping back sobs and sliding her forehead along the cool, dark passenger side window. The meth soon settles into my veins, the way sea urchins settle into the cracks of coral reefs, poking and nettling, uprooting my exoskeleton until the skin cells on my face begin to dislodge, spontaneously molting. I think of how my dad once told me that even though sea urchins appear to be the cool, purple spiked punk kids of the California coastline, they can also be indicative of a depressed reef. He said an urchin outbreak can lead to unsustainable bioerosion. I rub my jawline raw, flicking the rolled up gray skin out the window to join the burning ashes as they wail away on the wind. My consciousness sprints ahead into the darkest shadows, igniting phosphorus green flares, searing the heels of any doubt or fear or sense of self preservation beyond pure confidence in my own innate ability to achieve. Thoughts of money flash through my mind. Not so much money, but the fleeting security of money, the chance to buy freedom, gas money. I absently check the fuel level, noting that we are dangerously low and my next Carl's Jr. check doesn't come until next week. Who cares? We'll be swimming in skrill after stripping. I can quit that lame job. I can fill up with premium. The 60 freeway is the lubed up asshole of Los Angeles. There's nothing to see but the empty parking lots of warehouses, the neon signs slapped on the backside of strip malls gradually transitioning from English to Korean, the occasional glossy billboards of women who are more beautiful than I would ever be. We pass the giant head and shoulders of a young Pacific Islander woman selling tanning oil, winking as she nibbles a mango with her glowing white teeth. I course with longing for even a sliver of the security her beauty guaranteed. As far as I can tell, all models are currently tucked away for the night. Alarms set, night vision cameras engaged, the fluffy slippers that bob at the tips of their impossibly long legs, occasionally bouncing off their tan bums as they flip through fashion magazines, picking out the clothes they want to nab on the next rodeo drive trip, tiny bubbles chattering in their champagne flutes, each one reflecting a perfect miniature replica of the Hollywood sign, the only moon they'll ever need. We exit onto Hacienda, past a row of oil refineries, their orange flames wavering as they discard unprofitable gaseous byproducts. The road snakes over a hill and penetrates a dim suburban, semi rural neighborhood, stippled with chain link fences and occasional sidewalks. I turn down signless streets, idling in front of homes until inquisitive porch lights force me to slink along, searching for the address that will give me what I need. I had been riding the orange glow of the low gaslight since Rancho Cucamonga, and my car finally, magically, shivers to a stop in front of the address on my paper. It's one of those post war tinderbox houses built as good enough for now housing for veterans to sit in and forget what they'd done. We have ventured beyond the protective gaze of the billboard goddesses. My only upper hand is that I am here in the flesh. I know I will never be that woman, safely tucked away, beautiful enough to be known as not for fucking. I am VA Consolation House on an unlit street hot. I am hot enough to get my foot in the darkest doors, and I figure now is as good a time as any to accept that fact, even embrace it. Hawaiian tropic girls are safer, but I get to see the grime, the truth of the world, and it is infinitely meatier. We step over stringy weeds growing in the cracked cement, both prodigious and dying. I knock steadily for several minutes. A high pitched but distinctly male voice finally squeaks, "The hell?" I turn to Simone, who is busy inspecting a pimple in her cleavage. A moment of clarity spills over me like a whipped air tsunami body high from a hit of nitrous. I realize what a horrible fucking idea this is. We should go. Let's go. I turn, slamming into Simone, who is still entranced by her now red raw tits. I shuffle to the car slowly, brain octopi freezing, nitrous tubes spiking through neurons shooting out through my earlobes, tumbling like a spilled bag of morning stars. We are about to be devoured and raped and locked in a closet and fed semen for a fortnight? A fortnight of semen? So many spoonfuls. I'd be tied up, tingling in a musty wood paneled closet. Well, I'll lose weight if that happens at least. And I know that that is the stupidest thought I have ever thought. Who cares if you lose weight if you're dead? And we tumble back into the car, and I start the engine, and I see that we do not have enough gas to get home. The door opens a crack, and a short little man peeks his head out. His glasses reflect the industrial orange ambient glow. I allow my ass to unclench a bit. A man in glasses just seems much less likely to rape or murder. I mean, name one serial killer with glasses. Oh, well, all of them, I think, is the answer there, dummy. Okay, well, at least we have a fighting chance. If I could somehow jam shards of his broken glasses into his eyes when he attacks, you couldn't even kill that daddy longlegs in the bathroom last week. Okay, well, let's get it together. I turn the car off, open my door, and jam my elbow into Simone's side. We need gas money at least, I hiss as we slide back out. Brown, shaggy but thinning hair grazes the collar of the man's oversized Chico State t shirt, his weak chin pouring into fleshy stubble and graying chest hair. A bowl of SpaghettiOs languishes in his left hand, threatening to loose its entire contents onto his sweatpants. I offer, "Hi, we wanted to work for you. That is, we are dancers and we saw your ad and we wanted work. We were hoping you might have some work tonight, like a party or something." What ad? The ad in the yellow pages? This is Forever Entertainment? I'm Jeff. Well, Critter, they call me. I own Forever. I'm mostly a furry kind of private entertainer. Even that I haven't done much of in a while. I don't really work with dancers much. I do characters, like plushy characters, Barney and stuff. Oh, well, we really need to work. We don't have enough gas to get home. Do you know anyone who might need dancers tonight? He sighs, a drop of red sauce escaping the lip of his bowl, dripping down his thumb. He wipes it on the door jamb. It's pretty late on a Wednesday night. I don't know. There might be a couple of guys who would want a private. Let me make some calls. You can come in if you want. I take this as a good sign. He's obviously not overly interested in having us inside, not rapist interested, but he is willing to try to help. Simone's familiar far off gaze is no longer très français. I realize now that it really only signifies that she's thinking about wanting more shards of crystal. I, however, want to be perceived as professional. We can't exactly double up in our new boss's bathroom and snort lines without raising some suspicion. We cross the threshold and stand in Jeff's living room. Vertical wood paneling leads my eyes up to fat, plushy, grimy, dusty, matte eyed critter heads circumscribing the room. Play school caryatids disembodied and pulsing in the TV light. Intermittent deep sea ink purple, then technicolor green and fuchsia, all breathing as one. A schizo disco overwhelming the barbed meth urchins that peek out from the rims of my irises. Whatever shining promise of children's laughter on this Donald Duck head, Woody Woodpecker, Easter Bunny, or Smurfette has been time blasted away. Now these husks, sentenced to the purgatory of Jeff's living room, are forced to watch their communal spirit sink spineless into the broken office chair, which he has set close enough to the fuzzy faced TV that he can turn the knob without getting up. Jeff, my new boss. I chew on the idea. He could be a good boss. He's kind eyed and proactive. He paces the kitchenette behind us, wrapping the curly phone cord around his elbow as he tries to dredge up some old grouper faced pervert to nibble on our wiggling desperation. I imagine a tubby white guy named Ernie with a flat mustache and salmon colored polo shirt. Maybe he'd sit on a folding chair. Are we gonna dance here in the safety of Jeff? Or do we have to find another dark house on another cracked street, even farther from the freeway? Ernie probably has the lumpy cat hair covered couch, but no cat. And he'd push his chipped coffee table up against the wall to give us enough room to maneuver. He'd watch us pretend to lick and fondle each other, our blue and red metallic thongs winking in the dim light, his old nightcrawler rustling to life. We would politely decline to touch it because we were too stupid to get the money up front first. Not too stupid, actually, but it seems rude. Acquiescing to stroke the wiry hair on his arm, his chest, tug the lip of his slacks, watching in horror as he adjusts his balls. I'd know to float away until he stopped, then stroke his pants. It doesn't count if you just touch it from the outside, just to make him think you want it, but you're too committed to innocence. This scene plays out in the zoetrope of dead cartoon eyes above, sparked to feign life by the flashing strobe of canned laughter and sunlight. The fuzz of poor reception makes the churning images shudder and scrape across their leering, flat black, blue rimmed pupils. I envision the promise of a big tip if we would dance in the bedroom, following him in like the hapless children of Hamlin Town, wrestling the strong for such an out of shape greaseball on his possibly stolen from a motel floral print comforter. Simone in the corner, avoiding, Simone watching and picking at her fucking split ends, Ernie sucking my nipple, piercing into his mouth and biting. Once the nipple is in, you best not fight, because as hard as he bites, he can bite even harder. I spin from wall to wall, hearing Jeff in the kitchen arranging this scenario for me as an act of charity, hearing him cajole strange men in dark rooms into digging under their mattresses for spare chains and a chance to rip my nipples off with their yellow fangs. Even then, even with that gamble, some part of me needs to do this, needs to be free and needs it now. Mainlined into my wallet. Money, escape, meth urchin still ripping through me. Could use some more, of course, always. I feel the upward pull of the centripetal carny levered gravitron of adrenaline, of escape, relinquishment of control for the gain of complete control. No one else understands how the darkest places hold the deepest truths. Swallowing fear and stepping into this, that is the ultimate act of faith and courage. Behind me, Jeff insists, "Yeah, they're cute, young." No, I don't think that's in the cards. Well, okay. He dials another number. "Hey, Rick, it's Critter. How the shit are ya?" "Oh, yeah. I heard that. So, anyway, I got two hot girls here looking to do a private show. You into it?" "Yeah. No. No. Well, okay. Talk to you later. Okay, bye." He flips through his address book again, dials. "Hey there, Bojangles. You still working the lane? Listen, I got two young gals here in a bit of a pickle. Thought you might want to help them out. Do you want to do a private? Thought you might." "I see. Oh, okay. Okay, bye then." He slaps the address book shut and shakes his head. "I'm sorry, ladies. Nobody's biting tonight. Short notice and everything. I don't know what to say." I try to still my trembling throat, my gut snapping shut like an empty coin purse. "Well, I don't know what we're gonna do. I don't know how we're gonna get home." I turn to Simone, who has finally woken up enough to be sufficiently freaked out by the critter heads. She backs into the door jamb, fingering the knob. I try to hold the tears back. My one last bullet is to somehow make Jeff find us sexy enough to give us a few bucks. I wipe my eyes and say, "Well, what if we danced for you?" Barney and Donald leer at the suggestion. The Easter Bunny's buck teeth sharpen. Simone twists the knob. "Simone, you idiot! Never let them smell fear." I force a toothy grin with that mischievous half upper lip curl I knew men think of as sexy. "We could give you a lap dance if you want." He considers it, looks at the TV and then at each of us in turn. You ladies are very cute, very cute, very cute. But I'm tired and I don't really have any cash on me. I'll just give you $5. How's that? That gets you home candy. And this Roxy, her name is Roxy, and yes, that would be just enough to get us home if we don't get lost on the way. Thanks. Wow. I feel bad, like, taking your money for nothing. Are you sure you don't want a quick flash or anything? I mean, we owe you, Mr. Critter. We really do. No, I'm okay. But you girls coming out here like this, that's dangerous. I could be anybody. You got lucky that I'm just an old clown who knows what it's like to be in a tight place. But you gotta watch yourselves. Now get home and stay safe. I giggle as he presses a moist $5 bill into my hand before I bound down the steps and jump into the car. Simone slams her door and I turn to her to share a look that says, "We'll never talk about this again." But even so, the thrill of not being murdered for my own stupidity makes me giddy and even confident enough to idle around the corner for a few minutes, just long enough for a couple celebratory toots of crystal which purr in the shallow pools of my cerebrum like kittens in a basket, warming themselves on a hearth. I know now, in the vague, peaked way that a teenager knows things only in absolutes, that this is my destiny. This is my forever addiction. I will chase down the critters that infest my soul, that tell me I deserve shame, that I am unlovable. I will wrestle them to the bottom of the sea, and I will drown them in chaos.